All right. So let's go for day 2. All right. So it will be packed. We'll be streaming in the other rooms. So try to have some load balancing. Right. Try to apply the rules we say about architecture. Can we put down the music, please? I have really some nice music around behind. Who was there yesterday? Okay. Okay, too many people. Then who is there only for today, right? Okay, so who showed up today? Okay, good, good. So yesterday we had many topics about like, we had the opening keynotes with Gartner and Deloitte, about like when it's to be, what to do with GenAI and when to do it, right? So that was good. Then we had the workshop, like the sponsored workshop demos and stuff. And then we split into 5 tracks into different topics, mostly like classic API topics, like API management topics, API architecture topics, like event streaming, whatever. But today, let's say it's the theme of the event where we will dive into what's next. And of course, what's next is how we build APIs, design them, document them, secure them, manage them, monitor them, test them for what most of the organizations are trying today, which is AI and GenAI applications, right? I will not dive into the use case. That's the job of the business to find the use cases. But at least when the use case will be there, today one of the main topics will be how we prepare APIs to be GenAI ready, right? For the use case to be delivered, You remember the business when they say it has to be ready for yesterday, right? Often it's like that, right? Some architects, some people in the IT space know that, it has to be ready for yesterday. The customer said that yesterday it has to be ready, right? So before we start, let's acknowledge the country. So we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples today. Let's start for day 2 of the event. So just to say, the goal of Apidays is really to connect the humans behind APIs. So as a warm-up, we will do the same as we did yesterday because we have some newcomers. I will ask you to talk to your right neighbor and left neighbor for 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds. So that makes already 2 good connections, right? Can we do that? 10, 15 seconds. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, that's good. Perfect. Time off. Thank you very much. Apidays comes in Australia once a year. I know a lot of you are matching, actually, are meeting each other here. You make new connections. So yeah, you will have time in the hallway to do that. But at least I hope that's already 2 good connections right there. So let's see how it goes for the day. Thank you for playing the game, right? We're still humans behind APIs, right? So just to say, as a quick reminder, I will not do the same opening as yesterday, but just a reminder for the new ones. So we do 10 conferences a year. This one is in Australia, right? But we have a lot of other events coming. So don't hesitate to apply to speak to our other events. We love cross-pollinizing communities, right? Just for people in the logistics, I think we're good here. We have still seats available here, and then after it will be load balance in the other rooms, right? So what we have for today, again, the topic is the same as yesterday, but with a specific particularities. So we'll have the keynotes this morning. I will be presenting what I've seen in the last 18 months and try to gather that into a keynote. And we also have Sol Kaganov, which is the heart of APIs Australia, that I asked him to do the second keynote today. And we will have 5 tracks, right? But let's say if I can resume today the topics, it will be mainly how we can use AI for better APIs and how we can make better APIs for AI, right? So how AI can help build better APIs, like, I don't know, generate documentation, design, validate specifications. And on the other side, like how APIs can enable better GenAI applications. So it will be that for the day. Again, as a reminder, for people who still use social networks, right? The hashtag is APIs Melbourne, at APIs Global. Actually, it's funny, at the beginning, APIs Twitter was one of the main ones. In 2012, 2013, our events actually were top trending in every city. It was so it was fun. Now it's LinkedIn actually the most, where most of the hashtags are shared. So decide your social network. We would love to support your communication. Last but not least, before we start, we want to thank our sponsors, especially Boomi, our global platinum sponsor, that enable all the events to appear with provision, predictability, and engaged expenses on our side because they commit to that. So thank you very much for Boomi to support the API series. Also our gold sponsors, right? MuleSoft, Datadog, Postman, IBM, F5, Deloitte, Akamai, and Kong, and also Silver community. It takes a village to bring API Days at a place. So yeah, really thanks for them. And thank you also you for being there and being active on the conference. Are you ready to start for day 2? Yes. Oh, come on. Are you ready to start for day 2? Sure. Okay, that's better. That's better. Thank you very much. So we'll start for day 2 about what I call the APIs mandate for GenAI readiness, right? So yesterday, some people gave me feedback to say, yeah, we want more API talks, right? We see a lot of GenAI or AI talks in many conferences. We want more API talks. This is why we come at API Days. I say yes, but what type of APIs do you want, right? What type of APIs do you want? So this is what I will try to take today. So a little bit about me. I've done some things in the space, especially the API Days conference series. I wrote some books on APIs with some co-authors. Yes, we have 2 versions of the books because why just APIs would need versions, right? Books on APIs need version 2, right? I did some startup and companies in the space again, and I will try to gather a little bit what I've been hearing from CIOs, CDOs, CISOs, architects, and developers over the last 18 months about how to get ready for GenAI if we want to be ready for GenAI, and how we can prepare our APIs for that, because there is no AI and GenAI without APIs, right? So we'll see what does that mean. So let's go back a little bit in time, right? Let's go back in time, because actually, we have a history of software, right? Especially the last 25 years, right? The last 25 years has been extremely prolific in terms of APIs. We had a lot of thinkers, sometimes philosophers, computer science architects, or researchers who have actually built a stack that we use today, right? I used to listen to talk, then where I copied and pasted some content with authorization. But actually, the term API, the first time the term API was coined, do you have an idea when the first time the term API was coined? Do you have an idea of the date? 85. 85 before? 66. 66 almost, yeah. 68, at least the one I found in the literature I find is like the mother of all demos and stuff. Like they said, with the abundance of new hardware, we would need to use the same software on different hardware, and for that we need to have the same interface for programming applications. That was the first term. But the first time the idea was coined, right? The first time the idea was coined was like for Neumann 48, when he said, we may have routines for software, and we may have the idea of subroutines. We will not write the same software every time, where we need to be able to reuse software. And this is when I've seen that actually I've discovered, why do we call software libraries libraries? Because it was actual libraries. With pinch card, right? It was actually libraries. So you discover stuff that you believe you knew, and actually you don't. So it was actually libraries where the program was stored and that you were uploading on the computer, right? So it was library. And so really interesting things. But I've tried to put you here a little bit of the story of the recent API mindset. Of course, APIs are there since the beginning, but over the last 20 years, we had web services, we had like software that had promises that did not deliver. So the industry recoined the term API as a new thing, to compare with web services and SOAP interface and everything. But APIs are just interfaces, right? But we have a new mindset, a new generation of interfaces that is more keen to be reusable, to be exposed, right? So this is why, and this is why it's important, because in 2002, Jeff Bezos launched this API mandate. Who is familiar with this mandate? Okay, not everyone, so that's good. So in 2002, Amazon is a publicly traded company. They have approximately 1,000 employees, and they face the same problem as every organization has always faced, which is they have time to deliver, they have issues with software, it's slow, teams can't collaborate effectively, there's too many replication in a company, too many copy and paste, like what a lot of companies are still living today. But he pushed that idea in an email sent to all employees, right? It's an email sent to all employees, and let's read it together. All teams will henceforth expose their data and functionality through service interfaces. It's funny, it doesn't use the term API, because API, it's obvious that's an API, but let's say the term has not been taken back by the industry as the new way to build software, right? So the term API is not there, it's just service interfaces. The idea of the interface, right? Teams must communicate with each other through these interfaces. No other form of interprocess communication allowed. No direct linking, no direct reads, no other team data store, whatever. No backdoors and everything. Like we don't do crap. Like we do the right thing, right? It doesn't matter what technology they use. Extremely important. Doesn't matter the technology they use, right? As long as it works, interoperable, is described, and we can reuse it. All service interfaces, without exception, must be designed from the ground up to be externalizable. Doesn't mean needs to be externalized. They need to be externalizable. They need to be ready for prime time, to be ready to be open to another team, another department, a subsidiary, another company, a partner, a customer, right? A developer in the outside of the company to build applications, right? They need to be ready, not to be open, but they need to be ready to be open. What does that mean? That means also that you will build software that is as good as for employees, as for customers. So you stop doing crappy documentation for employees and only good documentation for customers. No, everybody is a consumer of the application or the software, right? That is to say, the team must plan and design to be able to expose the interface to the outside world, no exception. Like, that's a mandate, right? Anyone who do this will be fired. Thank you, have a nice day. So the story says, we didn't know if someone has been actually fired, but at least everybody followed the rule. So why it's important? Because it has been in many conferences about APIs and in many architecture conferences, that's been, some people believe it's the angular stone, the cornerstone of the API mindset. Like, again, the term API is not there, but the idea of service interfaces, right? And so the research actually is validating that. So this is a study for Marshall van Alstyne. He's a researcher at MIT, Boston University. He wrote books called Platform Revolution. And he made a paper. He made a paper about like how APIs are reverting the firm. What he means by that, he found that over 20 years, when you have APIs and you open your assets, capabilities to others, internally, inside a group, to a partner ecosystem or to developers, actually you reach your maximum reach capacity. Because instead of having issues and friction working with each other, you diminish the friction. So your company is able to embrace its ecosystem faster than the others. So it's revert the firm because the firm is bigger outside its own walls than inside its own walls. So it's revert the firm. This is how we claim, right? Bigger outside and inside, right? You cannot hire everyone, but at least you can give them access to an API so they can build on top of what you did, right? So in this, and in what he found, so he compares 200 companies over $2 billion valuation. So 200 public companies over $2 billion valuation. It's not about startups, right? Even now, startups can worth $2 billion with 10 employees. But he used like a classic brick and mortar, like legacy or whatever, incumbent companies, right? Over $2 billion. And what he checked, what's their growth and revenues before strong API adoption and after strong API adoptions. He put that on the same scale, put that on the log curve, and this is what he found, right? he found the quarter relative to API adoption. We see not a shift on the first month, but we see a shift, strong shift after, right? Because the economy of scale, reusability, agility, ecosystem business models, partnerships actually pays back. Right? So it's kind of obvious. 200 companies is not just one, right? Or one example, no, 200. So we try to really be to have an example, a wide example. So you can see a real API adoption signal that actually makes a difference. The only question when I asked him, I've seen him in his desk at Boston, and I told him, is it because of APIs that they are successful? Or is it because they are on the path to success and strong customer adoption and that they're obliged to have API models to sustain that? He told me it's a little bit of both, right? He told me it's a little bit of both, but at least the correlation is here, So what he found, after 2 years, most of these companies in average, again, it's an average, have 12% higher valuation. Again, it's over $2 billion. So that means a value of at least $240 million US dollars, right? In average, right? And the extra growth over 13 years, so 16 years, so it's a long study that he made, is approximately the average 38%. Again, is it because they have a good model that they have to sustain it with APIs, or is it because of APIs that they have been to have smarter models? Again, it's a mix of both, right? So in this study, this is what he found. This is approximately, if it's B2C, B2B, internal, whatever, but like B2B APIs, like he can have sometimes they can have a 16% more revenue if it's just B2B, or just on the B2B part, 4% on the B2C, and 16% on the internal, about innovation. The cost, he found that companies who have invested a lot on internal APIs have reduced their costs by 22%, right, on average. The net income is like the 38% I was talking to you about. And it's funny here, there's a drawback, right? The drawback is the hack risk. When you open APIs, you have a risk of, you open the door to the outside world, right? And so they found that in average, they have 13.5% more chance, or not a chance, to be hacked and to have a data breach. So that's the drawback, right? That's the drawback here. But it may be worth it, right? It's maybe worth it. So all the company here, all the top US giants and Chinese giants and all the giants we know at some point have a strong link with an API strategy, right? A strong link with that. It's funny, in his study, he doesn't take these examples. He takes really companies that we know and that are incumbent. He doesn't take the tech giants in his study because it would completely change numbers easily, right? When you take one Google, one AWS, boom, the numbers will skyrocket. No, he's a researcher, he's serious. So he avoid artifacts, right, in the data. So what about GenerationAI readiness now? I may say something today that is controversial, and that's fine, we're here for that. So just to say before, we tried to resume, it's Andrew Karpati who puts this idea, but he puts this idea of we have 3 eras of the new kind of way to build software, right? We have the software 1.0, which is we ship code and we write code to deliver programs or applications that are delivered on computers, right? That's the software 1.0 that we know, and that 98% of the software we know today. You have the software 2.0, like in 2012, with neural nets that came on the market, right? That came in the research, so it was a great paper. So now we don't program code, we program weights. We design weight distribution, weight systems. And these weights actually program neural nets. If we believe neural nets are the future of how we will make software, so actually the weight are the design and programs kind of the neural nets, right? And the recent era is the software 3.0, where we've went with large language models, we've been in a way where actually it's the prompt. It's the prompt who programs in natural language the neural nets, right? So the prompt programs the large language models that is based on neural nets and that is based on deep learning, right? So we went from code to weight to prompt, right? So, and you've seen with ChatGPT and others that prompt is actually booming because it's in natural language. Everybody can understand that. Everybody is a developer. You speak English, you write English, you're a developer. Welcome. Woo! Or you're a vibe coder, right? Why I'm saying that is also a mix between what Jason Wang is saying about how we maybe have a big shift in how we build computers and how we build servers, where he claims that at some point, again, we need also to be sure that to know that he has high interest to deliver a speech that fits with its own interests. So of course, let's remind that there are potential interest biases, but at least the vision is extremely important. There's an industrial revolution because for the first time we're producing something entirely new at extremely high volume, floating point numbers or tokens. So what he claims here, when he says these tokens are valuable because they represent artificial intelligence, you can take these floating point numbers and reformulate them into language, proteins, chemicals, image, robotic controls. Electron goes in, token comes out, just like how electricity was sold per kilowatt in the last industrial revolution. Now we'll have millions of AI tokens per dollar. What he claims in this keynote, he said that building code for building one application that we deliver on servers or computers, that's the way we are doing now. But tokens actually can shift. Tokens are more versatile. With tokens, you can generate tokens for images, for pictures, for code, for videos, for language, for music. And so he claims that the future, potentially, we will stop building one application per computer, but we'll just have a lot of tokens ready for prime time for whatever you program them instantly with the prompt, right? Wow, that's big mindset, not static code for the same applications that actually we try to stabilize all day. No, actually it's fine, Chaos is the design, right? Tokens are ready for whatever you ask them to be, and they can do one application on the fly, one video on the fly, you just pay per token, right? Wow. Really, really disturbing, actually, when you think about that. So when he claims that code, like software, the programming, will be replaced by tokens, that will be programmed with natural language. So the computing that we know actually will be about intelligence, will be cognitions, from computing to cognitions. The syntax of the code, that you have to indent the code, write the right syntax, it has to compile, whatever. Don't forget the semicolon and stuff. Actually will be semantics, will be natural language. And so the command line interface, right, will be conversations. Wow, that's a big mindset. That's a big shift, right? That's, the developers or like that they have been used to be trained and how they have been skilled, they skill themselves is completely different from what we may see. And on the other side, you have Sam Altman who say, a data center production gets automated, the cost of intelligence should eventually converge to the cost of electricity. At some point, again, they talk a lot about electricity because they need electricity to actually run this. But just to say, just the economy of scale. If tokens are cheap and it's just the price of electricity and we're able to, let's say, use them for whatever type of application, the way we're building software is different. And Jensen Huang also go strongly to say, look, the role of a server will be just to serve tokens. This is what he claims. The role of a computer tomorrow, it will be just to serve tokens. Wow. So it's really mind-blowing, and there is a lot of potential. So this is a recent paper from the team of Yashao, Future of Work with Agents, right? Where they take a scale, right? When you can see you have a HAS, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and you have, let's say, the different, description here. But let's say they try to determine what can be replaced, what human work can be replaced by AI, and what humans wants to be replaced by AI. Because we may replace things that humans still want to do. I used to talk with some people who say, I don't want AI just to read, create poems, and generate videos. I want AI to do my chores, right? I want AI to clean my room. I want an AI that solves my problems. The cool stuff is done by AI, right? They read books, they watch videos. Yeah, this is what I want to do, not AIs. But the thing, so they try to map. So tasks that can be replaced by AI and tasks we want to be replaced by AI, right? So the more you go on the 5, is that the human aspect, human-derived task completion. The more you go on the 1, is the agent. So, and you can see this approximate here. So you can see that approximately, we are in the H2, H3 section. We believe that AI will actually help a lot, and the human and AI correlation will still be there, right? And what does that mean? That means that today, on let's say the potential of AI, right? We have different levels. We have data transformation, natural language interface, workload automation, assistant, autonomous agents. I would claim that we're approximately here in average. We start to have Copilot that are interesting, but not completely working. But we all agree, I think, we don't know if it will be working, but there's a huge potential. There is a huge potential of this working, right? It can really revolutionize industries. It can really revolutionize how we create value, how we work. But let's go into the controversial part here. In last year, Daron Acemoglu, which is a Nobel Prize of Economy, said, okay, let's see what's the real impact of AI and Gen AI can do. And what he claims that actually over 10 years, maybe only 0.7% of growth, not the 10, 20, 30% that we claim now, AGI, whatever. Wow. So a huge potential. Jason Meg, Sam Altman say it will revolutionize the world how we build software. Doesn't work. So I don't dive too much into this. You can see the paper, but he has different hypotheses about how things may work. And it reminds this quote from Robert Solow, which is, we see the computer age everywhere, but in productivity statistics, right? And so my question today is that, are we seeing the AI revolution everywhere, but in the production statistics, right? Why I'm saying that? Why I'm saying that is because you've seen these studies, right? 70% of corporate initiative delivers to fail, of real value, right? Fortune, October 24. 40% of initiative are scrapped, and almost half of the proof of concept never make it to production. And you can see many, many studies, right? 80% of AI projects fail. Twice the rate of failure for information technology project that does not involve AI. Some people even claim you can't write fail without AI, right? Recent study, 85% of AI pilots actually fail and don't go over the pilots over 300 initiative, right? 30% of Gen AI projects will be abandoned by POC. That's a Gartner number, right? 40% of agentic project will be canceled by the end of 2027. Wow, so we have this huge potential and we have this huge fail. What's wrong? What's wrong? Is it because it can't work, doesn't work, or because we're doing maybe something wrong, right? Nobody has the answer, but at least I'll try to give you some answer today. Interestingly, some people believe actually Gen AI is really good for software. Say, okay, it may not work for pipeline, whatever, optimization. It may not work for banking, but at least for software, it's obvious, right? Of course, developers are more productive with software. Recent DORA report, so recent, October 24, right? So that's prehistory. But say that, okay, with Gen AI, of course, in average, over thousands of developers, 7.5% increase documentation quality, 3% increase in code quality, 3% speed of code is being reviewed. Wow, we see the statistics, it's now, we see it here, right? But on the other side, 7.2% decrease in delivery stability. Yeah, we agree, right? Stability, it's like, hey, fix that, no. Fix that, no. Fix that, no. And you know what? That just for the story, I was talking in some of our other conferences. We have a lot of AI, pure AI topics, and we invite the people from OpenAI, Anthropic, who build the let's say the Copilot for software assistance, right, for building. And they told me that because of now the error rates and the new business models of many companies are not based on, they are based on consumption. Now people are afraid to ask a fix because you pay for every fix, even if it's not fixed. And so they're just telling me it's exactly like when a product manager was asking the developer to fix, and they were asking it too much, and so at some point they say, oh no, I will not ask him or her that fix because they will be pissed off, and they will they don't have the right idea. So we have the same behavior. We have the same behavior coming. What does that mean? Sorry, here. So at the end, minus 1.5% on the whole thing. And our keynote from Gartner yesterday was saying, yeah, of course, because code is a tiny part of the full software life cycle, right? But still, even with that, we may lose time with AI. Come on, so we spend more, we earn time and everything on the productivity aspect, but we lose time at the end. Come on, what's wrong? What's wrong with it, right? So maybe we need to enable Gen AI to deliver its value, because Gen AI is trapped GenAI is in jail, right, in the organizations. We need maybe to deliver that. Maybe that's the missing number. And maybe APIs are the key for that, right? So let's see what does that look like. So I tried to replicate the mandate of Bezos, but what would that mean, the mandate in terms of APIs today, right? So mandate number one, all teams will henceforth export their data, knowledge, and workflows through GenAI compatible APIs, right? So we have a lot of organizations that have data. For most of them, they have APIs on top that is able to be delivered to other applications. But now we have a new set of applications that have a huge potential, which are GenAI applications. But we need APIs to fit with that. They are not just for humans and developers, they are for LLMs, or they are for agents, right? What does that mean? So you may have heard about like we do RAG, like retrieval augmented generation, how we try to have the right context for many applications, right? But maybe actually the future is that every application, right, or every data exchange or data request will be done in natural language in an organization. If all the data and all the APIs are being able to be part of the context of the organization, anyone in natural language can make any query with the right authorization, of course, and be able to find the answer. Oh, what's the HR stuff, or what's the customer data for that, right? So again, so we may need to have a RAG context for every type of application. It reminds me like this really old and crappy, let's say, diagram. Where you have the data warehouse and you have a replica of the data warehouse for just the business application, which is the data mart, just for sales or just for finance. Maybe we'll have like context for one type of application. We will not give the whole context for everything, but if we have the right level of authorization, every app or every API will just have the right context access, right, for the use case it's intended to be. So we're just shift from database to context, but then APIs can be actually a key for that. And just to say, just an example here, this paper, building an API to query relational database using natural language. Some people are actually enabling the fact that yes, we will be able to retrieve data, connect applications, just with natural language. And you can see also OpenAI, who launched recently the structured outputs, of course, because we want LLMs to be able to consume API outputs, right? And we want LLM outputs to be consumed by API inputs. So the link between APIs and GenAI is definitely key if we really want to have anyone in any organization to be able to retrieve data, right? Or any application to retrieve data thanks to LLM. Important point here, that was a feedback from a previous talk. I'm not talking about all the data of the organization. All the data should not be exposed by APIs. Right? It's just a chunk of it. That's important to be shared, important to be connected with others. And all the APIs should not deliver directly to GenAI interface. So you need to understand the business context of what data must be extremely ready and retrieved by natural language. So this is the job of your organization to do that. But I'm talking about these ones. I'm not talking about the data that should not be there. Right? I'm talking about this highly business valuable data here. That we can have. The second mandate, so communication between teams must happen through these GenAI interfaces. Jeff Bezos said no emails, no copy paste, whatever. Yeah, at some point, if we have Slack messages or team messages, they could be part of a context of a RAG, and I'll be able to retrieve that instead of going on the search on Slack or on the search on Microsoft Teams, right? Maybe it can be part of the context with the right authorization that can retrieve, right? Why I would go in the fragmented application every time to look for data? No, I need to have a holistic view, right? Just an example here about what can be changed if you have the right APIs for that, right? Mandate number 3, there will be no other form of inter-team communication allowed. Now, everything's through natural language. Maybe in a few years, email will disappear, right? The email client, disappear. We'll do that in our, send an email to my colleague about and generate the emails with the right data, and boom, it goes. So again, we may not understand how the software is shifting today, but we can use GenAI interfaces and natural language processing for that. Email will not disappear soon, right? But communication allowed is via GenAI accessible interface, so natural language, but either connected with the API of email, of Slack, or whatever, Outlook, we will be able to actually have this communication. No exceptions. Just as a reminder, 70% of large corporation employees look for data 2 hours a day or information. We could save that, right? Number 4, service interaction and APIs must be designed for consumption by AI systems. What does that mean? That means your API needs to be specified. We used to design APIs for humans and for applications. If we design APIs for agents and LLMs, we need to make them machine readable at the right level and with the right testing coverage, because we know there is no human behind the scenes to be able to look if something is wrong. It has to be extremely specified, right? So specifications are extremely key in that aspect. So OpenAPI was nice to have at the beginning, OpenAPI specification. It was important, for contract-driven development. Now it's a mandate. Every API needs to have its own specification that needs to be in sync with actually what the API is, and everything should be machine readable, and contract-driven development is the only way to do now in the GenAI space. There is no other way to build APIs if we want to be sure that APIs can deliver value for humans or for agents. No other way, right? So what does that mean? That means that your API gateways may be turned into AI gateways now. Because if we want APIs to be delivered by LLMs, to be deliver value by LLMs, we need also to have gateways that understand the LLM context. So API endpoints must enable agents to learn, query, and act on your team's domain. But most of the vendors here are API gateway providers, or they come from that. So the big shift even for them. And Jensen Huang has a great quote that I like. We say that we're headed towards a future where all code will essentially be API calls to LLMs, calling other LLMs via APIs, calling other LLMs via APIs, calling other LLMs via APIs, calling other via APIs, and over and over, right? So what does that mean? That means that, your data, whatever, your legacy system, whatever, API, LLM, API, LLM, API, LLM. So the classic API gateway idea, if you don't take into account the LLM's consumption, you're screwed. You will never be able to do that. So now we see something in the organization. We see 2 things. Just to remind. So the main idea of AI gateways is that you have a lot of APIs, you have LLMs on the right, you have your internal LLM open source, and credentials are all over the place. And so you need one layer, to be able to do the tracing, the caching, governance of observability, and the cost usage, and to handle credentials, right? Say another way. You have a lot of applications talking to LLMs, and the idea is really to have an AI gateway that is able to handle both, right? So AI gateway, API gateways, what's the link? The link is that actually we see 2 things now in the industry. The solution one is that you have your API gateway and your AI gateways, like with your data. And then, come on. And then on the right, you have your AI gateway for LLM applications. They live side by side. They don't communicate to each other. Teams are split, right? Or you have the other versions where your APIs powers LLM, who powers APIs, who powers LLM, who powers APIs, right? And then this is Mark O'Neill from Gartner who has this drawing, which is okay. But if we do that, our AI gateway is just API gateways with LLM capabilities, right? The industry is not clear with that. We will see where it goes. We will have pure AI gateways that will replace API gateways with, because LLM application will be the only way to do, or no, APIs are still there, and they are the core idea of applications, and we'll just add LLM capabilities on top. We'll see where that goes. And you can see many vendors like Kong, MuleSoft, Solo, IBM, with their token management, like Google RPG. All the vendors are actually moving in that direction, right? On the products, right? So you will see. Mandate number 5, doesn't matter what technology they use, right? We don't care about the technology. And it's important because there are many technologies out there. Just to name a few, again, the goal is not to present them, but LLM, text, MCP, agent, auth, we can't rely on one technology. If GenAI rely on one type of standard of technology, it will stop, right? Because when standards evolve, it doesn't work. So again, I will give you access to the slide if you want them, but LLM.text, MCP, which is the big name these days, right? That is actually recognized by Google and OpenAI and Anthropic and many as the way to wrap APIs for agents. Agent auth for security. Auth OAuth for agent, agency for agent-to-agent protocol, A2A from Google, Aradzo specification. Yeah, you can name a few. There is recently a new one called AGUI, which is a standard for agents to turn natural language into agent processing. And of course, what can happen is that there will be more competing standards coming, right? Mandate number 6, AX, agent experience, is the new developer experience. And that's extremely important because agent, like GenerationAI interface, may be designed from the ground up to be externalizable, discoverable, and composable. That is to say, the team must plan and design to be able to expose APIs to external AI agents, not just developers as before, right? In the outside world, no exception. So from UX, user experience, to DX, developer experience, to AX, agent experience. I don't know if you remember the PlayStation 5 launch. It was impossible to buy a PS5 for months. Why? Because bots are actually buying them and for people trying to resell them, right? So it was really, really hard. So if you're not ready for bots, if you're not ready for agents, they will be ready for you. Right, so this is why, and when agents, with the AI browsers are coming, you need actually to be ready for that, and this is why you need an agent experience. You need to be sure when an agent comes, you know it's an agent, you know what company he represents, what user he represents, what's his intent, maybe what's the prompt he has been, come on, I declare your prompt and I will tell you what you can do, right? Interacting with your MCP server. So you need to design this experience, about agents, because they will come for you, right? They will come for you. So if you aren't able to onboard them and to show them the right direction, they will not accomplish what they're here for. Imagine you have an agent that wants to buy something on your website on behalf of a user. If you don't have the right context, if you don't onboard this agent, come, this is my MCP server, this is what you can see, this is my store, this is my inventory, this is the price catalog, you will be able to miss it. So I really advise you to go on bots and agents. What's the difference? Bots are bots. No, actually agents are a little bit smarter and so more interesting. But yeah, I'll just go principle of AX. If you go on agentexperience.com, you will see there are a lot of literature about what's the principle of agent experience. And actually, you can have also like agent experience best practices. How welcome agents on your website and applications, right? Okay, we finish. Mandate number 5, you build it, you own it. Like APIs, right? You own the training data, the feedback loops of your domain, security, privacy, ethical guardrails. If your system hallucinates, exclude more harms, you own it. Because if you have a too strong governance, you will not be able to scale GenAI practice. You need to transfer ownership to the teams. Of course, many hallucinations, many issues, but if you try to control that in a central way, it will not work. So decentralize it. And also there are many regulations obliging you to do, so if you don't do that for yourself, do that for others, right? Okay, number 8, all components will be versioned and will evolve. Prompt will change, model will change, agent will get smarter, API get versioned. So you need to have continuous support improvement, right? So just an example, open source models on Hugging Face, almost 2 million with different versions, right? So if you don't manage that complexity, that will be hard. So imagine you have a number of APIs, by a number of API versions, by a number of SDKs, by a number of LLM models, by a number of LLM model versions, by a number of deployment hosts, client deployments. Imagine the dependency of if you break one thing, and it's not completely monitored. So the billions of deployment can be affected. So, this is why machine readability and specifications are key on the whole chain, right? Extremely the whole chain. Mandate number 9. You'll be fired or replaced by AI. No, joking. But, at least there need to be some governance and some directions for people to do it. And number 10, thank you, have a nice day.